choose to vote a person or a group of people to hold an office of leadership.
Did you know that you have the power to determine on who leads you?
Did you know that your vote has the power to change your society and the country at large?
Dear citizens, please vote wisely. Don't vote money, but vote issues.
Dear parents, I can't make any decision.
Your choice determines my future.
Fellow students, exercise your right. Go and vote.
Abafumbira mwese muzaze tugende tutera karuru.
Abanyayuganda mwena mugende mutera karuru.
Bashange face yihule kuche hudole.
Abantu nyana mujje tugende tukome.
Genda oronde.
Your vote.
My vote. Our vote
is our present and our future.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Buterevu esaawa emaze okubanga ewera emu ey'okumakya lunaku lwa Monday ennaku z'omwezi zirinnya omwezi gwa January omwaka 2021. Happy New Year bannayuganda, nyongera okubabuuzaako yonna gye musinzira okubanga mutulaba. Amanya nze Omumbejja Luwedde Lilian. Tugenda kuba tukutwalira ddala paka ssaawa 3 ne munnange Mukose Arnold Anthony agenda kuba tubuuzaako maasaawo. Then n'omugenyi waffe gwe tulina mu studios omwami Primus Bahiigi Atukwatse agenda kuba tuyenga ku maasaawo mu ddakiika ntono nnyo, naye nga mbabuuzaako yonna gye musinzidde bannayuganda, abavubuka, abakulu, yonna gye mutulabira, abatulaba nga mugenda ku mirimu, mbabuuzaako nti mukola omulimu gw'amaanyi nnyo nnyini ddala. Mbabuuzaako nti mukulikireyo ddala mu weekend ebadde mpanvu, naye nga Mukama atusobosezza okuba nti tutuuka ku lunaku luno olw'Emmande mu mwaka ate era omupya. Bangi ku mmwe olwaleero lwe muddayo okukola ku mirimu gyammwe oba ku offices zammwe, naye nga munnange guno mwaka mupya, so bw'obanga okola munnaaye kola n'amaanyi. Omwaka 2020 gubaddemu okusomozebwa kungi, naye leka 2021 gubeere omwaka omulungi era nawe gugenda okwenyumirizaamu. Mu kaseera kano njagala okujjukiza bannayuganda nti bannange COVID-19 gyali, twekuume nga bannayuganda, twebeereremu because obulamu bwe busooka. Obulamu bwo bw'olina okukulembeza nga tonnaba kukola ki, nga tonnaba kusalawo kola kintu kirala kyonna. Bwaba bakugamba yambala mask ng'otuuse mu kizimbe ne bakugamba yambala mask, mukwano gwange yambala mask because bw'onaaba toyambadde mask n'olwala COVID-19 oyinza obutawona. Abalala tubalabyeko nga bawona, but kiyinza okukwata obubi ate gwe n'okola ki, n'oyitirayo buyitizi n'oleka famire yo nga bonna babundabunda. Era ne mbajjukiza abavubuka oba bannayuganda mwena nti mukuume emirembe. Mu kalulu kano akabindabinda leka tukuume emirembe, leka tusalewo tubeere ba mirembe nnyo, tukuume emirembe mu kalulu kano nga tonnaba kwokya kipiira, nga tonnaba kwekalakaasa, nga tonnaba kubawa poliisi jjinja. Lowooza ku famire gy'olina ewaka, lowooza ku bantu abakudipendingako. Okiwulidde nti bw'onaaba ovudde mu bulamu bw'ensi eno ogenda baleka otya. Olina abaana, bw'onaaba ovudde mu bulamu bw'ensi bayinza okulemererwa okusoma just because omuntu yali abaweerera yava mu bulamu bw'ensi eno. Mukose Arnold Anthony katubuuzeeko, then n'oluvannyuma tugende maaso ne program. Wasuze otya ssebo?
Nasize nya.
Weekend yakutambulidde etya?
Weekend kyabadde mbi. Twebaza Mukama nti obwire bukalamu, wiiki mpyaka, omwaka muyaka, n'olabalaza olusooka mu mwaka 2020. Ebyabyamala tuikiriza nti newankubaire galiwo ebisomooza 2020, aye tusuubira nti ebyabyamala bijja kuwaawo. So ife tuikiriza kibumba mu weekend nti ezira mbeera yalubeerera era ye gaikiriza lazadema ate bwadema ezira akakanya. So tubaniriza buyaka omwaka muyaka magulimu ebyokulonda mulimu obuzibu kamaala, aye ife tuli baikiriza era tuli bagumu nti saawa yona embeera nijja kuwaawo. abafunye obuzibu mu weekend tusaba Kibumba abagumye nabo abafunye mu birungi era twebaza Kibumba wo mu weekend nti yabasobozesaiza okuba nti mubifuna temwabifuna okuba nti muli batuukirivu ayo olw'okwenda kwe okusaasira kwe n'ekisaaki tumwegeme era tuyikirize nti niye mu byonna byonna asinga Fraser n'Izaabu asinga mukazi wo omulungi asinga abaana be abalungi asinga ebigega byolina oyo ne Kibumba wo mu weekend ngabita mu mwana we musengwa o Yesu Kristo bwesaba okumawe Buganda weekend yabaddemu ensonga nnyingi weekend twalabye akakiiko k'ebyokulonda nga kayisa guidelines empya oba oli awo twakitegeddeko nti verification slips zafulumye mutegenda omanye wolondera omanye nondawa okuba ebiseera ebisinga abantu abasinga bagenda ku ssaawa esembayo walowoleza okugamba mbu simanyi
walowoleza nti walondera naye nga ate alondera walala
bamugamba nti ate toli weggaba ate oli webbunga ate agenze ebbunga nti ate oli wemunyonyi so ebyo byonna byonna eno week tugikozese buli muntu bw'obanga ogenda kulonda Wedi abewandisa naye nga awulira tali mu
mudu ya kulonda
naye ogenda kulonda ke kasera omanye olonderawa kikuyambe obutatewaana ku lunaku luli kuba tujjukira nti wabeerawo ne polling stations zebagazeete nga ku ssaawa esembayo ogenda kulaba nti ate golondera ku B ng'ate obadde omanye olonda ku A so byonna eno wiiki ekuyambeko isi yabagambye bw'omala okuba akaluluko oba okulonda tewali mugaso era tewali nsonga lwaki wali badde osigala ku polling station dawaka olinde results bakubuulire bina bivuddemu naye ffe tugamba nti nedda bw'omala okulonda eddembe lyo nga Munnayuganda
okusigalawo
soba nga tuteganyiza process yimira ku mabbali gobeera ebigenda mu maaso tuleetawo mivuyo naye mmenga sure nti wooli okumya emirembe era process ogirese etambula bulungi okkiriza abalonda balonde bulungi n'abatanalonda obaleke bayitewo bulungi leka kulagira muntu tegenda olonde tokubira campaign ku polling station kuba ebiseera ebisinga wabaddewo obuzibu bungi nga ku ssaawa esembayo ate ba agents bagala okufolota abantu balonde abantu bebaagala ekyo kikyamu campaigns zikoma ennaku z'omwezi nga 12 then olunaku olw'okuminasatu campaign pozi owa
campaign okweteekateeka
ku radio ku TV oba oliawo okuyega omu ku omu naye rallies ne campaigns zino ez'olujjudde zikoma nga 12 so 12 betusuubira campaign za mwezi okusinkana abantu sawa 6 ogw'ekiro omunaamukomya
naye mukulu Arnold campaigns mu central waneno zaaganibwa
actually gundi Elias Lukwago owaLukwaga ndowooza company advocates yagenda mu koti nga kiwakanya era ndowooza weekend bambasabidde balaba ndowooza bawa koti ensala yaayo ku nsonga eyo naye era niwe nayikiza niwe naagaana ndabanga obudde obuweddeyo nagenda ku bifo bya president ne ku bifo
by'ababaka ba
parliament so byonna tujja biraba amanyi bagamba tunabiwulira tadduukira nduulu ate zindaba olwange tolera musibe emmere so era byonna tubegese maaso tulabe ebinaddako awo mpozi ensonga endala twalabye ba presidential candidates abakyatambula mu maaso owanup omukulu honorable Bobi Wine honorable Kyagulanyi Ssentamu manyi gwe manyi nga Bobi Wine yalonkinze app enageza ng'agamba nti endagala muyambako okulondoola ebyokulonda oba oli awo n'ogezaako okendeeza emuviyo eyinga tale sente yaabwe so katulabe bwenakola katusuubire nti internet evueko nga bwekyali 2016 nayo ensonga eri awo tulabye Amuriat poliisi yamukutenga ka bebi bibitunde nakasongola nemuwanika nemuzeeri nga poliisi emuwanika ngaewonika akaana akato byonna tujja biraba nalabye Mugisha Muntu ng'akaaba nti media houses ne government ezipenetratinze babuukinga ku ssaawa esembayo ne bagoba byonna biri mu kulonda so katulondere twegeko amaaso tulabe ensonga zonna wezigenda katumuneko katono nnyo tukomewo n'omugenyi waffe then tandikirawo okwaza tukwaze paka ssaawa 3 tulina omugenyi waffe omukulu Primus Bahiigi Atukwatse nga ye manager global platform tutunulira embeera ya 2021 naddala nga otwekenneenya oba nga focus yaffe eri ku young people oba abavubuka tulabe betegese batya yenga manager global platform kyekimu ku bitongole oba organizations oba NGO ezitunulira ennyo embeera z'abavubuka naddala mu mbeera z'obukulembeze bo bakoze ogwabo sensitization yaabwe emaze basomeseze ekimala ye batandikira bakomawa lwaki mu kaseera kano so byonna anaaba bitubuulira gwe omuvubuka ali eyo ndowooza ne program eyo okuba nti obaako nekyoyiga oba oli awo obanga obadde otegese emivuyo ogiveeko obanga obadde atubuulira emivuyo mirungi emivuyo mibi dembe bitandikirawa likomawo byonna katukomewo tutandikirawo
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Kulikirayo ddala mu kuwummulamu okwo kwe tubaddemu okutonotono omugenyi waffe atweyunzeeko agenda kuba tubuuzaako maaso awo era tweyanjulire naye nga tannaba kutweyanjulira kooti yaffe egenda okugaidinga conversation yaffe y'olunaku luno olwaleero egamba nti we cannot always build the future for our youth but we can build our youth for the future. Kooti egamba nti we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. Kooti egenda okuba nga egaidinga conversation yaffe gye tulina olunaku luno olwaleero omugenyi waffe yatutuuseeko dda naye Arnold kayongera tubuuzeeko atwanjulire n'omugenyi waffe gwe tulina mu studios n'oluvannyuma tugende maaso ne Mighty Drive.
Neyanzizza nate akisaakalako okuddamu okweyanjulira naye omugenyi waffe atuuse nga twabategeezezza ya manager Global Platform. Global Platform by'ebimu ku bitongole ebigezaako okwempawaringa oba okuzzaamu amaanyi okugunjula okugaidinga okutraininga abavubuka mu mbeera z'obukulembeze. Ebiseera ebisinga abavubuka mwe kuba zikyali muvubuka naye mwe abakyasinze okuba ab'omugaso nti emyaka gy'olimu egyo gy'emyaka egy'okukola gy'emyaka egisalawo obulamu obw'omu maaso so bwe giba tegikwatiddwa bulungi oba oli awo n'obusaba by'omu maaso oba obyonoonyi. So Global Platform si kya Uganda yokka lwakuba nti ono akulira tabiri ya Uganda naye nsonga ya nsi yonna naye okusinga ddala essira liri mu Africa. So anaaba atutegeeza bakola ki bakoze ekyo okulaba nti kano akalulu ka 2021 abavubuka bakenyigiddemu era oyo ng'omuvubuka alina kukola ki naddala mu kaseera kano ak'okusoomooza kuba tukize tugaane obutafaanako na myaka giyise buli mwaka Uganda akalulu kafuuka kavaawo mpitewo naye tugenda kukozesa ndowooza ebitundu nga 9 nga luzungu ebitundu 10 nga Luganda. Munaatusonyiwa nti omugenyi waffe yali agadde nnyo okukozesa Oluganda naye nze nga bwe simanyi Luteeso nga bwe simanyi Ludaamu so tokinnenyeza okuba nti sibimanyi naye nsonga kya bulijjo era kitegeerekeka. So Mr. Primus, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, the moderator Arnold and Lilian, and Happy New Year to our viewers tonight or this morning. Primus Bahiigi, Atukwatse are my names, and I work with ActionAid, where I manage the global platforms. And I'm happy to interact with you this morning. Dear young people, dear ladies and gentlemen, passionate Ugandans, Africans, and those who might be in the diaspora watching us. This is 2021, the year we believe that might be different from 2020, which was really a difficult year with unprecedented coronavirus pandemic. And I'm happy to join you this morning.
We're also humbled. How is Global Platform?
We are resuming work today. We've been in about 2 weeks break, but working still informally. Scientifically, but we are resuming work today, and we are looking forward to a great 2021 because we have great packages beyond the preparation that we have been undertaking under the Platform for Youth Inclusion, but also preparing young people to participate in the 2021 election.
One would love to know, especially that person that is hearing a group platform for the first time. What's a group platform, and what does it entail, like the package? Because for us, when I hear global, but that platform that is global, what is that global? The platform that is global.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like I said, global platform is part and parcel of ActionAid International. It is a program or a project that focuses on young people. And the reason why it's a space that was dedicated or designed to inspire, connect young people from all walks of life, respective of gender, respective of color, respective of religion, respective of political affiliation, to be able to define, amplify their potential, but influence their own social, economic, and political environments. With a very strong belief that we are capable of changing our own environment as young people. We have great potential as young people. All we need is space. All we need is an enabling environment that can enable us amplify, that can enable us realize our talents. So it's part of the programming of ActionAid. Currently we have in 20 countries, but ActionAid is in over 45 countries. So within the ActionAid programming, for example, you have 4 thematic areas. One that focuses on women justice, another that focuses on democratic actions for people, the other one that focuses on climate change and resilient livelihoods, and then the one that focuses on economic opportunities and leadership opportunities for young people. And that's where the global platform falls. What is unique about us is that failure is part and parcel of the process. You know, we are in a country and in a continent where when young people fail, they don't want to share that testimony that they have failed.
They just lose hope.
They lose hope. And even people around us want to condemn us. So you don't want to share with Arnold or Lilian that I have failed. You only want to share the part of success. But success comes at the extreme end of failure. You must try and learn until you perfect your game. So we believe that it's part of the process. And we use the public, for example, as one of our theater or our action points. So the young people we train, we expect them to go out there, try, come back and tell us that, you know, this is working, this is not working, but also be able to learn from each other. Like towards the end of December, we had what I called candidates conferences across the country, where young people from various political parties were meeting together in one space. And the only thing they were sharing were experiences. How are you doing it in Ukomansimbi? How are you doing it in Mbarara? How are you doing it in Fort Portal? Amidst the challenges of commercialized elections, amidst young people who do not have enough resources to buy voters. And what was coming out was very exciting, you know, various mobilization strategies, various messages, how to package oneself. So those are the platforms that we create for young people. So it's that platform, that inspiring platform for us, young people, wherever we are, irrespective of our status, our color, political affiliation, economic status, to come and learn. And we offer various trainings because that is our specialization on trainings, leadership and what have you. And we hope this year we are going to unveil a leadership academy for those young people who will be in leadership at various levels.
For how long has Group Platform been established in Uganda? And how can a young person be part of such trainings and maybe join, how can he or she join the platform?
While ActionAid International has been in Uganda for over 35 years now, the global platform is 2 years, established in 2018. And we have a website, we have social media accounts, Global Platform Uganda, on Twitter, on Facebook. So we normally call for expression of interest for young people. So when we have a training, let's say it's a democracy festival, or it's a training on leadership, or it's a training on feminism leadership, or it's a training on activism and organizing or social movement building, we normally call for expression of interest. So young people that express interest through that form, they go through a receiving process. Because the other difference is we do not want to do trainings for trainings. We want to do trainings that are impactful. We also don't want to go on the street and have people. We want to have people who have passion. Now, when people express interest, you are able to see what are you going to do with the training after. How is it relevant to your vision? How is it relevant to your mission? How is it relevant to your goal? So it's those aspects that we consider, and then you can be taken in for a specified training that is relevant. But also to say that ActionAid's programming is rooted in what we call local rights programs. And in those local rights programs, we work with people. Remember, we are a movement that is focusing on fighting poverty and social justice. So we aim at that, people who are living in exclusion. And we are looking at how to uplift those people from that exclusion to a level where they are able to defend their own rights, to a level where they are able to advocate, to a level where they are able to influence their own situations. So we also tap into the constituents that we already have within those local rights programs that exist in about 40 districts in Midwestern, Karamoja, Northern, Western, and other parts of the country.
We see in these scientific elections, like it was termed, many organizations, especially those that are dealing with young people, have been either gagged or been tampered. The operations have been tampered by government. How successful have you managed not to rub shoulders with the state, and by saying that you even had a training in December and it was interrupted, and we are seeing we've experienced several of such being interrupted. How have you managed to work together with the government and not be perceived as enemies of the state?
Very good question. We must know that there is increasingly a shrinking civic space. By an increasing shrinking civic space, I simply mean that the space for citizens organizing is increasingly reducing. And this has not started today. And you might be aware that 2 years ago, for example, ActionAid was under siege. And towards the end of last year, 2 organizations that focus on work around governance were also had their accounts frozen and charged with anti-terrorism. And we had an unprecedented situation where the NUU, the National Election Observation Watch, was also declared an illegal coalition. Right? 2, if you look into the perspective of the elections that we are going through or that we are going to have, like I've always said even before across the African continent, that our elections are militarized and our military is politicized. So you realize that there is an increasing presence of the military personnel within the electoral process. And that tells you on the ability, because by nature and by the constitution, the army, which is a state agency, is supposed to be fighting and protecting Ugandan borders. Okay? So the shrinking civic space is real. The ability for organizations and individuals to organize is increasingly shrinking. But all the same, we try to see how do we work within the available space to push back, but also to dialogue, but also to be able to see how we navigate amid this challenge. So on your question is, we continue to do our work as mandated by the Constitution. Because we are a legally registered organization, we have a strategic plan, we have the mission for which we are supposed to fulfill. So we continue to work on that, we continue to do that as we dialogue, as we talk and push to see how the citizens and the citizen agents can work amid the shrinking and challenging times. And when I speak about this, it does not only apply to civil society organizations. We have an unprecedented situation where they are saying journalists should be accredited to report and talk about issues that concern Ugandans like elections. That's unprecedented. So I think for me the call for all of us Ugandans is that we need to reflect on Article 29 of the Constitution, which gives us the right to association, but also reflect on Article 38, which gives every Ugandan a chance to influence the political and policy processes of the country and ask ourselves, where is this space? Who should access it? So you have a situation where Article 21 is being violated because we are discriminated. So if you're from a various political party, you not access a certain social media or a certain media platform, and when you are from a political party, other political party, you will. Or because of your beliefs and views, you will not. So I find that a little bit challenging for a country like Uganda, and it is something that we need to reflect on and act on progressively as Ugandans to be able to ensure that we have space where we can deliberate, influence, but also be able to take steps forward. Because one of the critical differences between us human beings and animals through creation is one, freedom, and two, rationality. So when you curtail the freedom of a human person, it means you're tampering with the critical faculty that makes us human beings per se. So my call is, can we have this space available for us as citizens, as organizations, to organize, but also be able to influence our social, economic, and political processes?
Last year, when it was ending, you organized very many workshops, and in these we had the Democracy Festival. What was it all about, and what was it aiming at?
Thank you very much. The Democracy Festival again was a kind of a pilot one-week engagement with young people, and critically we're reflecting on the gains, what we call the deficits and the dividends of democracy. As a continent, first of all, and as a country, we've moved some steps. So I wanted to reflect how far have we come from, and what are some of the things that we still need to work on. And we're doing this with young people because we work with young people who are in the trenches. By the trenches, I mean young people who are in politics, young people in civil society, young people in business, young people in media and creatives. To be able to reflect together as young people, how do we see Uganda and how do we want Uganda to be? And that's whole week with young people. We took time reflecting on that. We took time to see the role of, for example, creatives in democracy, to see the role of business in democracy, to see the role of women and young people in democracy. Because we need to know that we have had a history for some time where a girl child and a woman have been marginalized. That's why there is affirmative action. I guess it's Article 31 of the Constitution, around affirmative action for women. And also affirmative action for young people. Because if the ground was leveled and there was equity and equality and people are free to express and do whatever they have to do, it would mean that you wouldn't be having special youth representatives in parliament, special women representatives in parliament. Today we have elders in parliament. Okay, so that was what we wanted to reflect on. And I was happy that the young people took time. And one of the critical outcomes, of course, was the need for us to emphasize, and like you said, build the future women leaders, which doesn't start with you preparing a future for them, but how do they become part and parcel? To know that if I'm a young woman, I'm 14 years, because today the average Ugandan is about 15 years. So if I'm a young woman of 15 years, I need to know that I'm aspiring to be a president, or I'm aspiring to be a member of parliament, or I'm aspiring to be a CEO of a company. What are those critical ingredients? What steps must I walk in? What books must I read? What people must I associate with for me to be able to be that CEO? For me to be able to be that woman member of parliament?
Yes.
And how do we begin to work on the obstacles? Because they are obstacles.
How to take leadership positions.
Exactly. How do I begin to work on obstacles? Because there are obstacles that are hindering young people from participating in politics. And one of them is poverty. One of them is highly commercialized elections. One of them is discrimination. One of them is the quality of education that we have around us. And those are some of the obstacles that we are reflecting on and saying, okay, how do we minimize, how do we navigate through these obstacles. Because also, my call for young people and what I've been doing is to say that we should see a good in everything we do. And the obstacles should actually be our projects. Because obstacles can only enable us to say, how do we work better as a collective? Overcome those obstacles, challenge those obstacles, and take a step forward so that the generation following us does not suffer from the obstacles we have suffered. So that is what I can say that Democracy Festival was all about, and we hope it will be an annual event that helps to shape and reflect on our democratic path as a country, but also how to improve it.
How did the society benefit from this festival?
This would be a very good question to the participants because it's a few, like 1 month since the festival happened. But one of the things that I saw practically was, like I said, we take our young people to interact with the community. So our young people went out there to interact with the community. And I've been speaking with some of the aspirants because within we had political aspirants, and they are telling me they have repackaged themselves. Because across, when you talk to many young people and many politicians, one of the challenges has been on how we package ourselves as young people, how we package a message that is appealing across the generation. And we are a society also that has biases. So there is a way a leader is perceived within our own communities. So some of them told me that they have repackaged themselves as leaders as a result of that festival, and they are seeing the ground changing. I had an interaction with one of the young men from Kole, and he's aspiring to be a district councillor. So he told me one is he has repackaged his way of dress code. He has repackaged his message. So it's a message not only for young people, but it's a message for old women, old men, young people, middle-aged people, business people, that he is the ambassador of the change they desire. He's the advocate of the change they desire. And he says the trend has changed. So for me, that's a gain, that from a small reflection, you can have people change their attitude, change their practice,
change their thinking,
and eventually that brings about the change that we desire in the leaders that we want.
By the end of these workshops, you do reports. Are they accessible?
Yes, they are.
And how are they accessible?
One, some of them are on our shared drives, others on the website, but also what we encourage our participants is to always share stories of change, which are also published and shared on our website. So if you visit the Global Platform website or the ActionAid website, you'll find most of the information that we are talking about. But also important to say that throughout the workshop and like the Democracy Festival that we had, most of the information was on the Twitter handle. Like every moment that was happening. So if you're also following us on our Global Platform Uganda Twitter handle, you should be able to trace and see most of the things that are happening wherever we are.
Do you do follow-ups on the people that you train?
Yes, we do. That's why I talked about expression of interest. That's why I spoke about, so there is an entry of a database of people who have participated. And then eventually we're able to follow up to find out, was the knowledge relevant? Was it used? And I've just shared a story with you of a young man in Kole whom I was talking to. So it's one of the mechanisms of saying, okay, how are you impactful? Because you see, programming is about, it is an iterative process. By iterative, I simply mean you're looking at how is the community informing your programming. Otherwise, you find yourself irrelevant in the work that you do. So it's a question of saying, how is the community participating? And the only way it can participate is if they take the theory back on the ground and come back and say, by the way, this works, this does not work. Because people will tell you, for example, that we are still finding a challenge to be in an election that is not commercialized. Because I need to pay my agents. But also I need to win that position for me to be able to change. So how am I going to win it if I don't put in money? I don't know if you get my point. Yeah. So it's a question of always comparing. What's the reality? What are you talking about? What's the best practice? How are you influencing it? And you can only influence that when you are interacting with the people you're training, but also when the people that you're training are coming back and giving you feedback and saying, hey, this works, this does not work. Yeah.
We've seen several organizations when they try to hold such trainings and workshops, some people are trained or taken through several workshops and trainings. For example, Arnold is here today. Even the training for March is Arnold. Even the training for April is Arnold. September, Arnold. But most especially, it's same trainings or workshops, but in different places, but with the same people. How is it different with Global Platform and ActionAid?
We need to differentiate two things. Whether it is the same training or different trainings aimed at a different thing. Because again, knowledge is not a one-day event. Transformation is not a one-day event. Otherwise, we wouldn't be going to church every Sunday. Otherwise, I would go to church on a Sunday. And I don't go back. After all, I have seen God and finish seeing God. Or would go to school and never go back to school. But you realize you go to school, do this course, finish, do another one. So organizations have missions. Organizations have strategic vision, strategic plan. So I may want to get an Arnold who is living in extreme poverty. But Arnold who is living in extreme poverty is challenged by A, Arnold is a woman. B, Arnold is living in extreme poverty. C, Arnold lacks capacity to even talk to his leaders. D, Arnold does not have source of livelihood. Okay? So it means if I have to transform Arnold,
you have to take him through different...
I have to have a multi-pronged approach. Because his problem is multi-faced. It has different dimensions. Now, instead of picking 7 Arnolds and you give one a tip on, let's say, livelihood, and then you stop, and then you get another Arnold in area A and give him a tip on leadership, you will confuse this person. You know, like they say, if you are to drink on the well of knowledge, you better drink deep and quench your thirst. Because if you take a spoonful, you'll be more confused than the person who has not tested at all. So you'd rather get Arnold and give him the tip on how A, perhaps his challenge on livelihood is because of an injustice around somewhere. So Arnold should be empowered, 1, to be resilient, 2, think about leadership, 3, think about livelihood. So there are chances that Arnold, and that's programming, that Arnold will be in a workshop on, let's say, leadership, he attends a training on economic livelihood, and is benefiting because he's a woman on the issues around women empowerment, feminism, leadership. So you might see that merit-based approach, and you wonder, but how do we do it at a global platform, for example? We have people who graduate from trainees to training of trainers, and eventually they become they become staff. Okay? Because ours is a progressive process. So I may come in as a trainee, I have acquired, learned, improved, I become a trainer. So it means I'm growing through the process. And for me, that's how life should be. Because in Africa, we believed so much in what we called apprenticeship. Meaning, if I was a blacksmith, chances were high that my children would be blacksmiths because they saw what I did and they did it. I get my point. So that's how it should be. That if you are mentoring me, if you're orienting me, I should be able to go back and mentor others. So for us, that's how we could call the difference. The other scenario that you're talking about, it needs to be put in context. Who is this person? So I may not ever speak about it, but I can speak about it from that programming point of view and that aspect that I have raised. But just speak to what Lilian said on her theme, and also looking at the perspective of 2021, and the fundamental question would be what mindset and how are we preparing as young people to work in 2021? What are we learning from 2020? How are we positioning ourselves in elections and post-elections? These are some of the fundamental questions that we need to reflect on. And I've been challenging the people that I met and people that met me during the festive season challenged me. Say, for example, the young Ugandans. We've gone through unprecedented pandemic of coronavirus. About 17 million of us are at the risk of sliding back into poverty because we have lost jobs. We've lost livelihood. And 2021 is here. We are almost making a year. How have we prepared ourselves? Do we see a change of a trend in what we call rural-urban migration? Because if there is no change of a trend, it means we are moving away from resources and perhaps going to where resources are not. Are we seeing a change of a trend on how young people are beginning to adapt and take, for example, agriculture seriously? Because COVID taught us two things. One, think of sustainable livelihood as Africa, sustainable livelihood as a country called Uganda. Two, it has enabled us to embrace technology. So walking into 2021 as young people, we need to think of, one, how do we do what I've called collective investment? And by collective investment, I simply mean that we've had a culture as a country where we want to work as individuals. So you find that if I want to start urban farming of tomatoes, I want to do it in my compound. But the little tomatoes that I'm doing in my compound may not be able to guarantee and give me the income that I desire. But if I get Arnold, if I get Joshua, if I get Peter, if I get Lilian, and we use our compounds to do tomatoes, it would mean we would have leverage on the market. But beyond having leverage on the market, it means we could begin organizing other tomato farmers to farm better. Because remember, us have knowledge, have some skill, and we can access market linkage. So how are we thinking strategically of saying the jobs are becoming difficult, but how can we use the small space that we have within our homes to be productive? That's one. Two, when you move across the country, there is a chunk of land. But also when you move across the country, we are having the challenge where young people are moving from the rural communities to urban areas. Because again, the perception is that Kampala or any urban area is where life is and is where success lies. Perhaps because also the governance and our governments have not strategically positioned communities to be areas of excellence, but also to be areas where people can draw livelihood. So how are we taking a step back in 2021 as young people and saying, look, we can actually go back and do agriculture? I'm speaking about this because the more we live in extreme poverty, the more it is going to be difficult for us to change the democratic and the governance trends. Amartya Sen says, a poor society or a hungry society will always breed dictators. Because I saw an unprecedented situation where a vote was costing 500, and in some area in northern Uganda, it cost a chicken. The scenario was one member of parliament who was aspiring on a certain party prepared beans, and another one prepared chicken. So when the people had finished taking beans, they moved and went and took chicken in another home, and the vote swung. But if I can be able to rear my own chicken and prepare it, then that would turn around the circumstance. So how are we young people positioning ourselves and beginning to say the agriculture sector across Africa is projected as the fastest growth? Okay? But what is painful is that we are leaving our land and some foreigners are taking over that land and using it to do exactly what we would do. So how do we collectively organize as an agency of young people to begin to take advantage of that? Now that is beyond the politics. But when we look at the 14th coming, which is the hottest topic, is how are we mobilizing each other? Because also there is the question of young people not participating in electoral processes, the whole issue of young people not wanting to go and vote. So as we step into 2021, young people, we need to build our future. We need to prepare our future. And we can only prepare our future when we say and begin to be part and parcel of the decision-making process. And one of the decision-making processes is happening on 14th, 20th, 28th, and 3rd, where we are voting the president and members of parliament, LOC 5 mayors, and what have you. Because this vote that we are going to have is the time when you do signing of a contract.
Social
Democracy
contract.
gives us a social contract, right? And in this social contract, as citizens, we have responsibilities, which one of them is casting our vote, which one of them is paying tax. Because the moment you are a citizen of Uganda, you are obliged. Actually, when you don't pay tax, you're either penalized, you can even be put in prison, or your business affected or being closed, right? On the other hand, the government is supposed to provide services, which include quality roads, quality education, quality water, quality electricity, and others. But in here, the contract, I am supposed to supervise. I'm supposed to demand for accountability. I'm supposed to ensure that the road they are giving me is the right one, that the health care they are giving me is the right one, the education I'm getting is the appropriate, the security I'm getting is the appropriate, right? And the time of voting is a reward or sanction. Okay? So if I have performed well as your leader, you're supposed to reward me. If I have not performed well, you're supposed to sanction me. Okay? So that's how vital the electoral process, that's how vital voting is. So what does this mean? That on the 14th, if you are a young person, you have your voter's card, you have your national ID, I'm calling upon you, wherever you are, travel, go to your polling station and vote. Vote for the candidate of your choice. Vote for the candidate that you believe is going to give you the country that you desire, the country that you believe in. And shun a politician or a leader who is going to give you money. Why? Because if he pays for your vote, it means when he goes to that office, whether it is president, member of parliament, LOC 5, or mayor, he's going to first recoup the money. In other words, he's using you as a commodity.
You have no more authority to demand for accountability.
So you don't have more authority at all to demand for accountability. So young people, as we step into 2021 and desire to change this country for the better, let's not sell our vote. Let's stand up and vote and ensure that our vote is counted and ensure that you get where you desire to go. Now there is a mistake that I've found that some people say, but why should I go and vote? Maybe my candidate will not go through. Now that does not matter. Yeah? Because you are voting for your conviction. You are voting for your belief. So whether your candidate does not go through, you have made a statement and said, for me, I believe Arnold has the best views and has the best manifesto and the best way to lead this country. So my call in 2021 is, as young people, let's go out and vote. The other aspect is, as young people, let's not say when 2021 ends, the world will have ended.
True.
So we need to be conscious that we need to have very peaceful elections and a very peaceful Uganda post-elections. We cannot afford anymore to live in chaos. We cannot afford anymore to live in destruction. We need to build a situation. I have friends who have taken their families out of Kampala. Already? Yes, and they are saying we are not sure. You have investors who are waiting to see what happens on 14th. You have others who have flown out of the country saying we are not sure what happens after 14th. I have friends who are working across the country. They are not going to vote. They are saying we are going to travel before 14th because I'm not sure whether after 14th I'll be able to travel. This is a trend that I would want to see changing in Africa, where elections are not an event of bloodshed, where elections are not an event where we think about bloodshed, but elections are a moment when we critically say we are going to choose the future of the country for the next 5 years. Where elections do not mean that people and businesses close, but where elections are celebrated. And this can only happen if us, the citizens, begin to demand for credible, fair, free and elections where leaders change in a just, peaceful and respectful manner. Altogether.
Yes.
So for me, as young people, beyond 14th, we need to begin asking ourselves the fundamental questions. And these fundamental questions include, if elections have not been free and fair, can we have the ones better? If these ones have been militarized like we are seeing, should elections continue to be militarized? If I have not been prepared as a candidate and perhaps because of the various flaws within my campaign strategy I have not gone through, can I prepare myself to be a better candidate for 2026? What are the redress mechanisms? If the redress mechanisms are not working, how do we work together to ensure that they are strengthened and they work for the country and for the people? And how do we strengthen and accompany the people who would have chosen, who would have been selected as leaders to be better leaders by holding them accountable and ensuring that they deliver to the mandate for which they have voted and make Ugandans and Uganda a better country and a better world to live in for us young people, for the old people, and for the generation that comes after us.
Primus, do you think the young people are participating in the current politics meaningfully, or they are participating because it's a norm and it's a calendar year? And if not so, what have you done to see that young people and the youth meaningfully participate in the decision-making process through an election?
That question cuts across, because see, what we are in a context. What affects young people perhaps affects old people, affects women and everyone. So our elections in Uganda and in Africa, a true reflection of the people's will, and are they elections based on issues? My research says no. We are in a continent and we are in a country, and if young people could react from wherever they are in their villages, where elections are about religion, where elections are about tribe, where elections are about money, and where elections are about my person, okay? And also, elections are eventful, not very meaningful. What do I mean? If you asked me that, have Ugandans, for example, internalized the manifestos of various candidates and they are going to make a choice based on those ideas aspirations in various manifestos, the answer would be no. Okay? If you ask me that has adequate voter education been done for Ugandans to understand the reason why they are going to choose their leaders and elect their leaders in various positions, I would say no. If you ask me that has the population been prepared to understand the meaning of a vote and are the leaders able to understand the meaning of a vote, I would say no. If you ask me that is the environment fertile and has the processes that guarantee a free, fair, peaceful, credible election to happen that reflects the will of the people across board, I would say no. Okay? So when you look at sub-Saharan Africa, for example, we've had about 44 out of 48 countries in sub-Saharan Africa have had multi-party elections. But the trend where they say they seem to be living to democratic, the trend is the reverse. That most of these elections do not pass a litmus test of being credible, fair, and free. And there are so many theories around it. Whether the population is ready, whether the leaders have done the necessary preparations for the population, or whether actually the democracy of voting and elections is the right democracy for Africa. Right? So we are not ready. So the question is, are they eventful? This is my view. This is my view. That yes, they are eventful, but they provide a platform for us to learn and improve. That is if only we take keen lessons from each and every electoral process, then we'll be building towards a perfect end that we desire. What do I mean? That for us, elections should be a running point. We should pick lessons from this election and say what did not go well. What did not go well is, for example, the access to media. That the candidates did not access media equally, meaning that they did not market their ideas to the public in a free and a fair manner. So how do we improve? Or some candidates were denied. Some candidates were denied to accessing certain spaces and others were never denied. Or they were interrupted, or they were imprisoned, because there is no reason why a presidential candidate should be imprisoned. And we say, how do we improve this scenario and make it better? So for me, we need to pick great lessons and build systems to ensure that we run and have credible, better elections in future, but also we produce better leaders.
Abatulaba tukyagenda mu maaso. Eddakiika erimu eyaketa ku ssaawa 2 ey'enkya ya leero Monday nnaku z'omwezi 4 January 2021. Twogera ku byabukulembeze, twogera ku muvubuka, twogera ku nsonga ezikwata ku ggwe nange. Katugenda tuwummulemu katono nnyo gwatugoberera. Genda ku social media account zo zonna, oba Facebook, oba YouTube, oba Twitter. Oteekemu The Alternative Uganda mu search engine. The Alternative Uganda onaaba otulaba. Tukyagenda mu maaso katugulumu katono nnyo tufune ku lwendo lw'amalombe tukomawo.
Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Uganda is born again.
Mubirabye. Mubiwulidde.
And you will see what NRM means. We are going to crush those criminals.
Mubyenyigiddemu.
We are simply peacefully telling our people, say no to rigged elections.
ebimu mubitegeera
naffe tusobola okutiisatiisa abo abatiisatiisa
oba oli awo ng'abamu mugwamu bigwe byabaffe byava ku ki
era kyova olaba baatukolera ne constitution esinga obusiru mu nsi yonna
bino n'ebirala birindirire buli lwa sande okuva ku ssaawa 11 okutuuka ku ssaawa 1 ey'akawungeezi n'eyaliko katikkiro wa buganda ow'ekitiibwa Dani Muliika ku program eriiso ly'omukulu ku Facebook page The Alternative Uganda.
Bannayuganda bannange, mu kaseera kano ng'eggwanga liri mu kusoomoozebwa kw'ekirwadde kya COVID-19, tubakubiriza okukuuma emirembe mu bitundu gye mubeera n'okukomya obutabanguko mu maka. Mwewale okukwatibwa ekirwadde kya COVID-19 nga mugoberera okulungamizibwa kwa Minisitule y'ebyobulamu naddala mu kaseera kano ak'okunoonya obululu. Obubaka buno bukutuusibwako Uganda Women Parliamentary Association UWOPA ne UN Women ne buteekebwamu ensimbi aba EU Spotlight Initiative.
The world is at a critical moment of providing innovative alternatives as a means to create change.
As such, we have created a not-for-profit alternative mobile digital platform as a way to promote space for freedom of speech and expression to the unheard voices.
We know you believe in the cause and you can further it more by contributing to its sustainability in forms of internet data, fuel, and any other support you deem relevant.
Please support us with your contribution to Equity Bank account number 103-5201-607252 under the name Alternative Digital, or our mobile money numbers 0702-900076 or 0783-047785. Alternative Digital. Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Digital. Real issues, real talk.
Kulikirayo nnyo ddala mu kuwumulamuko kwe tubaddemu essaawa ziri 2 ez'okumakya era nga eddakiika 5 ze zaakayitako zokka naye nga nkubuuzaako yonna gy'osinzidde abakatweyongako essaawa zino mukolera ddala omulimu gw'amaanyi nnyo nnyini ddala. Gwe wenna alina ekibuuzo kyagala okubuuza omugenyi waffe olunaku luno olwaleero agenda ku Facebook search engine teekamu The Alternative Uganda. Like the page ekigalo ekiwanikiddwa bwekiti kyoba onyigako olikinga page ate era ofollowinge then onyige n'akadde ako aka notifications so that whenever we are live ofuna notification ekugamba nti weetuli n'omugenyi waffe gwe tuba tulese olunaku olwo n'omubuuza ebibuuzo no participatinga era gwe wena alina ekibuuzo genda mu comment section teekamu ekibuuzo kyo tugenda kubanga tukimubuuza mu ddakiika ezisembayo 3 nga tunatera okuwunzika show yaffe eno. Atugambye nti abavubuka tugende tulonde. Bananga abavubuka batumanyi nnyo obutaagala kulonda nti bw'otuuka n'osangayo layini ng'ogamba waaye nja kudda oluvannyuma ate ogenda okudda ng'obudde buzibye. So abavubuka ku luno tugende naffe twenyigiremu mu kulonda ate era tugambye nti totunda kaluluko. Omwaka oguwedde bwe twakyaza omukulu Adolf yatugamba nti omukulembeze oyo bw'aba akuwadde ssente zirye togaana kuzirya but bw'otuuka wali ku ssaawa y'okulonda okusalawo kuli mu mikono gyo asobola okuwa ssente naye ate n'otuuka wali n'olonda omuntu gw'owulira gwe nga gw'oyagala okulonda naye nga totunda kaluluko because omuntu oyo gw'oguzizza akalulu bw'anaatuuka mu parliament n'atakolera ebyo bye wali osuubira oba n'otuuka ku ssomero n'otasangayo basomesa oba n'otuuka mu malwaliro n'otasangayo ddagala ate ojja kugamba nti omukulembeze gwe nalonda tankoledde so nga ate bwe yali akuwa ssente teyakugamba nti zino ssente nzikuwa lwa nsonga nze mmaze okwawula nti bwe ntuuka mu parliament toddamu kumanja. Kkooti yaffe guidinga conversation yaffe gye tulina olunaku olwaleero egamba nti we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. ye quote egayidinga conversation yaffe gye tulina olunaku luno olwaleero n'omugenyi waffe Primus Bahiigi era ng'ono manager wa Global Platform Uganda. Mbadde njagala kubuuza, I wanted to ask, what do you think is the problem with the youth as far as fighting for space is concerned?
Thank you very much. There is a question that I've been asking myself, and I think I wrote about it some time back in one of the dailies on who is Uganda's problem. Is it the leaders or the citizens? And now you're asking, what is the problem of young people in fighting for space? Very interesting question. But I think critically that we are in a world where we've been made to believe that mediocrity, and I want to emphasize that mediocrity is the way to go. But also we've been made to believe that when you're not supposed to sit on the table, but you can eat the crops that fall off the table. What do I mean? We are in a society where, as young people, if I have something small, I have arrived altogether. So what do I mean? We've grown up being told, you do not have peace, so I've given you peace.
And that means you've achieved.
You've reached. You do not have this road, I have given you the road. By the way, people are dying of polio. Now you're not dying of polio. Altogether. So then we've been made to believe that the little we have is the best.
We are satisfied with the little we have.
We are satisfied with the little we have. So that simply means that our aspiration for the best, our aspiration for excellence has dwindled. And that has a very great implication, because the implication number one is that we are going to have great inequality. Now the real problem, in my view, is that one, our models, who should be the models of young people, have become dealers instead of being leaders. Two, we've become in an environment where there is mediocrity. Three, as young people, we've been made to believe that whatever we want should be put on a plate and given to us.
We want free things.
Yes. So, and this is informed by a number of things, which includes there's so many mushrooming churches, there's so many spaces where we go, and businesses that promise get rich quick. Because in those spaces, and because also of the what we watch, we think that life should be very fast, and it should be, I want to use the agricultural term, it should be grafted. Like when you graft an orange, it can take 4 or 5 months to, or when you graft a chicken, you can eat it in 3 months. So that's the problem. So as young people, we've been made to believe that all that should happen. So I want to tackle one problem by one. Let me start with the one of mindset. That as young people, we've been made to believe that, you know, things should be on a silver plate. They should be given to us on a silver platter.
We don't have to hustle much.
We don't have to hustle. So I'm going to come here on this mighty drive and I shout, as young people, we need space. As young people, we need space, and space will be given. No. And it's a big no. So what is going to happen, and what has happened, is that these spaces have been created on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on social media, where you can go and rant. But then it stops on ranting, and psychologically somehow you feel a little bit okay. Yeah, I have said it, I have spoken it, I have told them. But behind, what are you doing? I always say that the world will never give you what you deserve, but what you're willing to fight for. So as young people, that mindset needs to change, and we know that we must fight for the space. So if I am a young person and I want to be a CEO, I must work and present myself to be that CEO.
You have to invest in.
I have to invest in that. If I want to be a member of parliament, it means I have to live, I have to work and work like a member of parliament should be. And when I go there, it should not be, have been favored, I'm a young person. No, I should go there on a merit. So my fellow young people, we need to fight. And we need to believe in our own. That if a young person has come, he has ideas, he has the future, he has what it takes to be there. Let's vote him massively, we have the numbers.
Yes.
So this question of saying that the inclusion in politics, the inclusion in economics, the inclusion in employment space is going to be given on a silver platter, we should forget. We must struggle. We must fight. 2, the mindset and the source set of saying, I'm going to claim that building and that building will be mine. I'm going to pray and claim that car and that car will be mine. Forget. Okay? Faith without action is dead. And I'm very bitter with the people and churches that are preaching miracles and keep people in church from Monday to Sunday, Wednesday to Wednesday, overnight telling them pray for miracles.
Is it bad praising and worshiping God?
I've not said praising and worshiping is bad. I'm saying I'm against the people who spend all the time in church and they are being told to pray for the miracles will happen, and they are not working. And the source set and the mindset I'm talking about is, it's ora et labora, which means pray and work. So meaning
pray
that
and
as
work
hard.
Prayer and work,
yes.
They work together.
Yes. So we shouldn't believe in one. So you meet a young person walking on the street every day, going to church, and saying, I'll find salvation. But when it comes to work, when you give him a simple piece of work, the production is poor. They are not willing to go and do the dirty work. Okay? So that must stop. And it does not only happen there, it goes into the betting clubs, because that is the mindset that I'm talking about. I'm going to go to the betting club and I'll get the car from there. I'm going to go to the betting club and I'll get a plot from there. That is gambling. And there are so many pyramids that are happening in this society where they say, Lilian, you want to be rich, you bring 900,000. If you bring Arnold and he brings 900,000, for you to get 1.5. That's a pyramid. That does not work. So as young people, we need to shun that mindset of gambling, that mindset of believing that things will work when we are not working. History has shown us that greatness, success, wealth creation will go to those who work and work hard and work smart. Right? So that mindset needs to change. The other mindset and source that needs to change is the mindset of mediocrity. And by mediocrity, what do I mean? That we are satisfied with very little things. Very little things. We do not aspire. So when I'm given a small job, I'm satisfied. I don't want to go beyond it. Okay? The Baganda say, Kastafune mere ya leero ndi bulungi.
Tofaayo kuyancha.
Naye tulina kuzimba eggwanga kugamba nti even when I don't work tomorrow, I should be able to eat. I saw a WhatsApp video going around where a priest was preaching that 30, 40 years ago, a parent managed to take care of 10 children, send them to school. But today, 10 children are not capable of taking care of one parent. And that's a problem. That's a problem. It's a fundamental problem. So that is a problem that we need to fight. Lastly, as young people collectively, we need to fight what I have called structural causes of poverty. And what are the structural causes of poverty? I tell them to you. One, we need to ensure that there is access to finance, just access to finance. Because Uganda is among the top 3 world entrepreneur nations altogether. So when you meet 10 Ugandans, young people who are not employed, 7 will be telling you, I want to open up a shop, I want to open up this, so Ugandans are entrepreneurs. But more than 50% of these businesses die in the first 1 year. And part of it is the whole question around access to capital. Because yes, I've managed to get rent, but maybe I don't have enough money to put in enough stock. So that needs to be addressed, and it's a structural cause, okay? We need to address the structural causes of favoritism, because favoritism again creates a scenario where certain people will access goods cheaply and others cannot. So when we start businesses and Arnold is operating tax-free and I'm not operating tax-free, it simply means that my commodities are going to be of higher quality and yours are going to be of low quality. The other big one is the quality of public services. And what do I mean? Our education has been commercialized. And this has an impact on how the nation is going to be poor. And let me take 2 seconds to explain that. Today, the capitation grant in a UPE school is 10,000 per annum. Get me clearly. Capitation grant is the money that the government gives to every pupil. 10,000 per year.
Someone was a meal for breakfast.
Ekitegeeza every term the capitation grant ziringa 13 okay?
8,333.3.
If you go around Kampala, a cheap private primary school is around 500,000. Now we are looking at physics where we talk about input and output altogether. And a topmost is about 3 million. Now the quality on average, because of course you're going to give me examples of some of us or some of you have come through public schools and are excelling wherever you are. But that will be like 1% out of 100%. True. Now, this child who is getting 3,000 and this child who's being invested in 3 million will never meet.
Will never.
So you finish primary, you go to UCE. UCE capitation grant is about 30, meaning that every secondary school student has about 10,000. But a secondary school here is about 2 million plus. No wonder when you go to the admission of Makerere University today on private sponsorship, you find that private schools, Namgongo, Kitende, Seta High, Nadia, they have higher numbers compared to public schools. That breeds inequality.
Compared to my public schools.
Thank you. That brings inequality. And that inequality breeds the question of access to opportunities. Because in employment at this level, we are going to begin looking for quality. People who have people who have performed very well. So you find that also those jobs are crowded by people who have gone to certain schools, bred on certain schools. So eventually the son and the daughter of this poor person who has not been able to access quality public education is not going to, at the same time, is not going to benefit from quality employment. And in the long run, what happens? It means that the gap between the rich and the poor is going to widen. The poor are going to get poorer and the rich are going to get richer. So we need to fight that structural challenge and ensure that the public schools are as functional as private schools. I can talk about that for the healthcare system. I can talk about that for the quality of roads and what have you, and the quality of agriculture. So, as young people, as we struggle for space, we need to fight, work on our mind and soul set, believe that we must fight for that space. It will not be given to us. Believe that we must work hard. And at the start, I spoke about collective investment for young people and Africans and Ugandans. There is power in collective investment, but we have had a challenge where we do not trust each other, where we do not put in place systems that can enable us work. I normally give an example. If we are 10 people and we are able to raise 10 million, it means we can raise 100 million 10 people. And with 100 million, you can do massive things. But as an individual, 10 million might not be able to open for you a lockup. But 100 million can open a supermarket for us, 10 people. And it means in a period of 2-3 years, we can be able to open 5 supermarkets or 10 supermarkets. But with my 100, I may not be able to open up a lockup shop. So it means there is power in collective investment. And we need to begin thinking about that area of how do we invest collectively and be able to challenge the power of the global players, the multinational companies. We need, after that, to organize ourselves and challenge and begin to demand for quality public services, because that is going to enable us to fight structural poverty. And then as young people and as a generation, we'll be liberated from the shanks of poverty. Again, I was sharing with my colleague that this is a Christmas period. Now the purpose of why Christ is born is to bring light to the world. And I like one verse in Luke 4:16, where it says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me to go and proclaim good news to the poor, set the captives free. So it means that Christians who are in this Christmas period need to embrace light. And light says no to poverty, says no to injustice, and begin to walk and work the journey of liberation and the journey of kwebereramu in everything that we do.
Primus, just right over there, we've seen we have vulnerable groups of people, and especially people with disabilities. They seem to be left out, not only in leadership, but also in trainings, in workshops, in empowerment. As a global platform, what package do you have for such people? 2, when you talk about youth participation in leadership, do you think elderly people should be represented in Parliament?
Again, the question of representation of various interest groups. As a governance expert, I see it as a question of patronage, not a question of delivering and ensuring that we have quality leadership. Now, what patronage and the danger of patronage is about tokenism and is about co-opting as many people as possible. Okay? Now, if you have just systems, if you have just institutions, you actually do not need everybody to be in Parliament. It simply means that if Arnold is there and is a member of Parliament, he's deliberating and legislating for all. But I told you that we are in a country where politics is not about the quality, but is about owange mwali. Owange bwagendayo nange nja kufuna mu. That's the problem. So the elderly will say, by the way, we are not represented, so our issues are not talked about. That should not arise in a just, fair political system. Because multi-party system simply means that people with different ideologies are in different parties, not people of different age, color, and group. Because the next that we are going to have is we are going to say, Albino is saying, of course, that parliament of ours already has people with disabilities represented, workers represented, young people represented, women represented. Even
posts are demanding for representation in parliament.
Even Indians. So that tells you that there is a whole big question around our governance.
We are soon getting tribal representatives. Vasoga, Baganda, Banyankole.
It's happening because the districts, if you look at the way the districts have been carved out of the districts, they're also largely based on tribes. So it tells you there is a whole deconstruction around our governance that needs to be redesigned so that the systems that are in place are systems that address those issues. Now, when you talk about global platform and the issues of inclusion, you know that even today we are the ones hosting the platform for youth inclusion in politics. And I'm happy Lilian was in one of the trainings or one of the retreats where the young people with disabilities were ably represented. As an institution, as ActionAid, and as global platform, inclusion is at the heart of our strategy. And that's why I talked about irrespective. So for us, one, we go a niche higher to ensure that if we have invited someone who is able different and cannot see, can we have an interpreter? And can those interpreters be catered for? So we need to know that a society that cares for its people, a society also caters for everyone, irrespective of your status. And this is what we should be doing progressively. And my last comment on elderly being represented, I think for me our parliament is big enough and it needs to be reduced. But we need to begin asking fundamental questions on what kind of institutions do we want that are going to deliver services to everyone. Services to everyone, irrespective of whether you are able or disabled, of whether you're short or tall, of whether you're black or light, of whether you are a woman or a child, a man or a different gender, because today they also speak of different genders. For me, that's my call. And I think it is not relevant for us to have different interest groups in Parliament. All we need is quality legislators that can deliberate for the entire country.
Our viewers, we sit with Mr. Primus Bahiigi, Manager Global Platform at ActionAid, and we are discussing youth inclusion, youth participation, most especially in this period of elections, and how peaceful the country should be and should remain before, during, and after the elections. Elections is not a do or die, but it's just a process where each citizen or society member determine who should lead for a certain period of time, and it's a social contract. So we don't believe contracts were being made under tension, under wrangles, under fights. So we are talking about elections and the youth. Mr. Primus, I attended one of your trainings, and I'm glad to appreciate that you even accommodate breastfeeding mothers. You even cater for their helpers. This is so incredible that most organizations ignore when somebody is pregnant or when somebody has just delivered. They tell you that you will be part of us after a certain period of time, but for Global Platform and ActionAid, I applaud you for that. We have a national question or a national concern, especially from the state to civil society organizations. It's alleged and believed by the state that you are fueling fightings, you're fueling destabilization, you are fueling maybe civil wars, or anytime the country is on a time bomb through your funding, that you're getting money from illegal, illicit, and terrorism organizations, if not so, even from homos, which by national laws, these are all illegal channels. How true is it that you civil society organizations, not actually only not Global Platform, but civil society as a group, why are you funding or getting funding from illegal entities to oust the government or the regime?
Once again, like you said, that's an allegation.
Yes.
Which is unfounded, which is not true. Okay? Because civil society, or first of all, when you talk about civil society, you're talking about citizens altogether.
Yes.
So civil society is about citizens agency. And churches, mosques, cooperative organizations are part and parcel of the civic and civil society. And all these have a legal framework under which they operate altogether. So for starters, an organization cannot be in a country if it has not been legalized, registered by the government of the Republic of Uganda through the Register of Companies and later on by the National NGO Bureau. Altogether. On an annual basis, these organizations file returns, but also they develop strategic plans, they develop proposals. And in these strategic plans, they clearly, and even at registration, they clearly state why they exist. Their purpose, their objectives, their reason for living. They are clearly stated in their documents which are submitted to government. Okay? The government of Uganda works with agencies, both here and abroad. And some of the funders of these civil society organizations are at the same time funders of government programs. For example, Democratic Governance Facility or the Swedish Embassy or the European Union, they fund, or the Danish Embassy, Danida, they fund government programs and civil society programs at the same time. So it is politics. It is again the game of undermining the civic space so that civil society organizations are fueling tension. No, it's not true. As far as I'm concerned, and the organizations that I know, they do not fund civil unrest or civil wars. For example, for ActionAid, it strongly has a non-violent mechanism in its strategy across the world. We never participate in violent mechanism, never, nor can we fund them. Even as simple as a tire to burn on the road, we cannot. Because our mandate is clear in the 4 areas. So it's not true. And it's diverting the Ugandans and the world to believe that because both government, civil society organization and others get foreign funding. When we had COVID, who gave us money? IMF, World Bank, US Embassy and others. And those are the people that fund civil society organizations. So it's not true. The only role that we do is we provide platforms to ensure that citizens get to know. We provide information. We provide the platform. We empower citizens. And we also talk about the ills of government. So for example, when we are talking about corruption, is there any Ugandan who does not know corruption? If I come here and talk about too much money in elections, is there any Ugandan who does not know that is bad? If I come here and talk about marginalization and quality of public services, am I undermining any government effort? Or I'm saying, guys, wake up. The social contract is ABCD. So can we have quality, accessible medical care? Can we have quality, accessible education? Does that undermine the government?
How safe are you?
In terms of what?
Most especially this period of elections, since you're being gagged, since you're being attacked, being accused.
Like any other Ugandan, not only civil society, because you've had so many Ugandans, especially those with dissent views, being rounded up, being put in prison, being caged, trumped on charges at various levels. So we do not know. But what we know is that what we are doing as civil society is legal, is within the laws of Uganda, is mandated. And we do not side, that is another thing. We do not side with any party. We are non-partisan. We engage in politics, talk politics, but we are not partisan. We do not provide a platform for NRM or a platform for NUP or a platform for FDC. We provide a platform for everyone. That's why I told you that, for example, the candidates conferences that I had, all parties were represented. NRM, FDC, DP, NUP. The parties that had candidates within that area, young people, were presented. Because my fellow Ugandans, Uganda is here to stay. It was, it is, and it will be. And the problems of Uganda do not have color. Poverty is not blue, Poverty is not green, poverty is not red. Poverty is poverty. Sickness, disease has no color. Ignorance or lack of awareness or poor education does not have color. Quality roads do not have color. So as Ugandans, we need to define our problems and be able to churn a mechanism of solving our problems. And that's one of the reasons why we have been calling for the national dialogue, a process that is going to provide a proper transition and a proper healing for all of us. That we are able to understand that before the colors, before the many things that we are talking about, we have Uganda and critical problems that are facing every Ugandan. And once we have a consensus, then as Ugandans, our focus should be on solving those problems, irrespective of our color. That no Ugandan should be able to live on 1 meal a day as long as he's a Ugandan, because Uganda is a part of Africa. That should be a mission of everyone.
Primus, we have...
That no Ugandan should die of any disease, because Uganda has resources and we can afford to have the quality health care that we have.
The government claims that at least it has done its part towards attainment of what you're claiming that is not here. Don't you see that some achievements being claimed?
Give me examples.
You were the one who you do follow-ups, you do research. Don't you believe that the government and the state have tried their best?
Yes, we are not saying that the
government...
Because
we are democracy is there. We are in an election process.
Again, democracy is not about elections. And our elections. So, for starters, we recognize and strongly recognize that government has done work, and nobody has denied that. Nobody has denied that. But we are saying, can we do better? If we are losing 700 billion every year in corruption, we are saying, can we lose zero? Because the 700 billion is equivalent to budget of about 70 districts. Hello? So you're losing 70 districts in corruption, administrative corruption. You're losing more money in what we call illicit financial frauds. So our call is not to say that nothing is being done. We are saying, can we do better? So for example, if we curbed that 700 billion lost in administrative corruption, how much service would we deliver in local government? We are saying, thank you, elections are there. And we are not denying that the government has put in place mechanisms of having elections. But we are saying, can elections be free, fair, and credible? Can we have equal access for all political players to share their views, air their views, so that the public can decide? We are saying, can there be massive voter education so that citizens get to know why they are voting? We are not saying that there is no universal primary education. We appreciate it's a tremendous thing. It's a tremendous thing to have UCE, but we are only asking, can we do it better? Can we make it quality? Can we ensure that the children who are emerging from those processes are not just literate, but they are able to innovate, invent? We are not saying that the government is not putting money in agriculture. We are saying, can we reach the level of at least putting 10% of our national budget into agriculture, since agriculture employs the highest number of people?
Primus.
The government has put in place institutions, but we are saying, can you separate these institutions from individuals and make them functional institutions? So I hope you get where we come from. We do not come from a point of saying the grass is empty. We come from a point of saying the grass is half full, but this grass needs to be full. Because Uganda is the part of Africa. And I can tell you, we have the resources. And not only Uganda, but Africa. And I've said this before, that Africa can feed the world. Africa and Uganda can be a donor to the world. But this can only happen when Ugandans and our leaders and the citizens make a resolve and say, yes, we can excel, we can do it, we are the best, and let's do it.
Several voices have been heard saying and expressing worries that given what happened on 18th and 19th of November, the country is at verge, is at apex of breaking, is at a boiling point. What are your post-elections prospects vis-a-vis the trainings you've ever had with the young people? And do you think this process is still in the hands of the Electoral Commission? Where did the country go wrong, and what should be done?
Like I said, Uganda is here to stay. And in my previous comments, I spoke about peaceful elections. I was in Kenya in 2007 as a student. And I saw the nightmare that we had in Kenya when election violence happened in 2007. You do not want that to happen here. So first of all, my call to Ugandans is let 14th and 15th and this electoral process not be the beginning or the end of Uganda. My call is for peace. My call is for dialogue. My call is for constructive engagement. What happens on 18th and 19th is regrettable. And that's why I was saying that as Ugandans, we need to have the minimum standard. Or for example, saying, no Ugandan deserves to die at whatever cost. Because the right to life is a fundamental human right that is given by God and God himself. So there is no human being who should take it. So we should value Ugandans' life. Every Ugandan life matters. A police officer, a citizen, an army, a candidate, and everyone. So the moment we put human dignity at the center, then we are beginning to have sense. So then people will ask, then what happens in case we are dissatisfied? There are avenues for redress. Okay? We have courts of law, but we can also call for a dialogue, a discussion, a constructive engagement. So that our country does not break simply because elections have happened. That should not happen. Our country should not break because I have cast a ballot. Can we as Ugandans begin to have that sense of saying elections are not a moment of do and die? And I said it a few minutes ago, that people are in fear, people are leaving Kampala, investors are going, because elections are about to happen. For how long will this happen? But also means that can we have mechanisms put in place that are transparent, are free and fair, where if you contest or if you go in an election, you're sure that you're going to be treated equally, fairly, and the outcomes will be respected.
Many of us believe, as I take you to Lilian and take you through the questions and reactions from the audience, many people believe that, and we all understand that election is not on the polling day, but it's a process. Given the fact that, and the signs from nomination day, okay, from actually the roadmap, the day the roadmap was released for the election cycle, voices have been heard saying that the election is unfair and it's not free. Given the day of nomination, candidates were arrested. Others decided not even to put on shoes because their shoes were taken on that day. You've seen their campaign trails, they are being blocked, tear gassed. Do you think that the process is fair and fair?
Of course, at the end of the day, we have observers and we have teams on the ground. I'm very well aware that there is a team that is following up on media and doing media access. But like I said, there are parameters that you look at and you're like, no, there is unfairness, you know? Because you see the prayers, for example, we had an unfortunate incident in 2015 when there was electoral reform process. And what changed was the name, for example, of the institution. So many Ugandans do not have confidence in the institution of the Electoral Commission, that the institution, the composition, represents a free and fair referees. And on 31st, I was listening to the president, and it also shocked me a little bit when he said that some electoral officials and people are planning to steal elections. That is regrettable. Yeah, but there are teams that are going to really make an assessment. But of course, from what we are seeing, like I said, there is already discrimination on access to media. There is already discrimination on how people access electorate. There is already, so first of all, me as me, and these are my views, not the views of, again, 95% of the views I shared are my views. I think it was not right for us to go in an election in a pandemic, because as a country, we do not have in place the critical mechanism and infrastructure that would enable us have a scientific campaign. So first of all, that was an error, because the cost of radio is about 1 million shillings.
It's high.
It's very high. The cost of TV, I was looking at their rate cards, 5 million, 10 million, what have you. So the access itself to media was a challenge. The cost is a challenge. And then you want people to have scientific elections. But beyond that, the other one was on, you have a party that has just been formed. So the infrastructure and the structures have not been critically done across the country. So it's very hard for you to tell them that you go and meet structures which you have not duly formed. But you also have independent candidates, because the Constitution allows. So that conception of a scientific election itself, in my view, had a fundamental error, and how I wish we had waited and done elections at a time when we are not talking about scientific elections. So I'm sure we might have an excuse of saying this was an unprecedented scientific election. So perhaps has produced scientific results which are unprecedented, which may not be very, very fair for Ugandans who always look forward to 5 years and then have a fundamental shift.
Talking about COVID-19, how has it affected ActionAid and civil society activities at large?
It has. It would be right to say that COVID has not affected anyone, because when the country was shut down and SOPs introduced, nobody was prepared. Have we adjusted? Yes, because we are doing much of the work remotely using ICT, but also it has created a challenge for our marginalized communities that we work with, because access to internet is a challenge, access to technology is a challenge. So yes, there has been an impact, but we are slowly adjusting and seeing how we continue to fulfill the mission and purpose on that front. And for civil society, yes, it has been affected, because also much of the civil society reaches out to the grassroots communities, and as you may be aware, there the cost of internet, the access to internet, the access to technology, the ability and the skill is still wanting.
Okay, ebibuuzo tulina bingi nnyo, bannayuganda bangi babuuziza ebibuuzo ebyenjawulo. Kantandike n'omukulu Norman tumuhimbise. Abuuza, are there specific moments where you think civil society organizations have not achieved their role and expectations?
Like, I like a statement which says that when the angels were moving in heaven, also somewhere, somehow, the son of a devil was in. So I cannot speak for the entire civil society. There might be some moments, or there might be some organizations that are not living to their standard. There might be some organizations that are strictly biased, because from my understanding, me and the time I've been in civil society, we are supposed to do a role of a midwife. The midwife largely enables a wife to deliver, but it does not deliver a child. So we are supposed to be neutral, impartial, and what have you. But there could be shades of civil society organizations that are partisan, which is unfortunate, or that are siding with one political party or the other. That's unfortunate, because the role, again, is supposed to be impartial. And we have seen in history and in some countries where some section of civil society decided to say, you know, we are siding because the oppression is too much. So you had a time like around apartheid and the time in Zimbabwe when the entire civil society said, you know what, enough is enough, because this is what the citizens want. We are going on the side of citizens and not the side of the state. But largely, the role of a civil society organization or an NGO is supposed to be a midwife. It's supposed to be facilitating all the process for all critical players to express themselves, but also to build the citizen and the citizen agents to be able to be at a point where they can enjoy their freedoms and rights.
Another person here, Magala Brian, when you talked about youth involving in agriculture, he said every young person would love to join agriculture, but it's not appetizing in terms of prices or market. Like there is no market.
Yes, Magara Brian, all the way from Masind, I guess. Yes, Magara Brian, like I said, as we walk into 2021, there are obstacles. Access to market is one of the challenges. But I also think that as a country, we've not yet done organized farming, and some of our products are wanting. Because what I know is that there's also a huge market for agricultural products. But the question is, how much research do we invest before we do agriculture? Do we understand the market need? Because what should also happen should be market-oriented farming, to be able to know what is it that the market wants. For example, now I know that the macadamia tree is on market. I know that hash avocados are on market. I know that the cost of a local egg, hello, young people, I know that the cost of a local egg in Kampala is 1,000, but the other one is about 300. So there is no way, if I had my local eggs, there's no way I would fail to get market. But perhaps I need to put in more skill. So it's a whole question around differentiation, understanding where you go. I pick my local eggs from Fort Portal. I move all the way to look for them. So meaning that if I had my 15, 20 local breeds, I would be sure that I'm getting 1,000 per time. But he makes a very fundamental point when he says that is not attractive because it's hard work. And most of us, the training that we've had in this education system that is a little bit free of knowledge is white-collar jobs. I'm supposed to wake up, put on a nice tie, put on a suit, appear on the street. And when I appear on the street with a suit and a tie, for a young man or a young woman, will be attractive, you know. And there is this whole trend of saying, you know, officer. That is, again, a colonial mindset of saying that for us to be where we want to be, we must have officer, manager, boss. So when we are working in our agricultural setting, when we are taking care of those chicken, when Brian, you're planting that macadamia tree in Hoima or Masindi, or when you're planting your maize, and you're coming from your shamba with your quora when it is dirty, you even don't want to go through town because people might think that you went to school and you're not getting what you're supposed to do. And I think for me, that's the mindset that needs to change. Because primary production and value addition has a lot of money compared to the white-collar jobs that we are looking for. I'll, for example, tell you that I have a study in my computer, and this is a personal study, on small-scale businesses that I've done in Fort Portal, Kasese, and a comparative in Kampala. A young man who sells chapat, kuchisijiri, earns more money than a banker.
Serious?
Yes. On average, they have about 900,000 that they take home.
It's a lot of money.
And the people who sell tomatoes, they also earn more money than most receptionists or administrative officers on front desks. Much more. So it's something that we might need to interrogate. I interacted with a young man who does manicure and pedicure. And when this young man tells you the amount of money he makes, it's amazing. But how many of us, for example, are willing to go down that drain and do manicure or pedicure? I interacted with a young woman deep in Kasese. And what he does is he prepares porridge and food on the street for the lower end of the class. For drivers, border borders, and what have you. And this young woman is paying school fees for 5 kids. I may not be able to pay for 5 kids with my salary. So why I'm bringing out those comparisons is that money is where we seem not to see. But you might see me on this screen, or on TV, or on radio speaking, and you think, yeah, I want to be like him. But boss, we are walking a journey of the broke. So we need to rethink on where we want to prioritize. And not that everybody should be in agriculture again. Not that everybody should be in business. But my core is, can we be able to identify our talent and
as
be able
concluding.
Yes. And be able to go in those areas in 2021 that are very, very productive and will liberate us from poverty. My final conclusion for the listeners, again, increasingly I'm convinced that the liberation of Uganda and Africa economically for young people is going to be in collective investment, where we are able to work together and be able to build companies that will last for generations. I have interacted with some government agencies. You find that 99% of consultancies, 99% of services are being taken by foreigners because we've not had critical companies, critical institutions that can do this work. And as you said, building the future, the young people for the future, let's build the companies for the future. Politically, let's go and participate, and let's be strong when we are participating. Let's be engaged. Let's be on the table. Let's research and be informed, so that when we stand to speak, when we stand as leaders, we are impeccable leaders. Leaders that prepare and believe in a vision and salvation of Uganda. The hope is that Uganda is for us. Because if I am 30 years, if I'm 25 years, if I'm 18 years, if I'm 35 years, it means that I still have more years to live in this country than someone who is 80. So my stake, the passion, the commitment I should have in building this country should be stronger, much greater than somebody who is 75, who is 80. Because I'm here and I need to enjoy Uganda for a longer period of time than that person. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Primus. The Alternative Digital, real issues, real talk. Kansula muvubuka ofunyemu ekyokuyiga olunaku luno olwaleero era nga ekyo kyoyize ogenda kikozesa mu bulamu obw'omu maaso. Eno Mighty Drive ebeerawo okuva ku Monday okutuuka olunaku olwokutaano okuva ssaawa emu okutuuka ssaawa 3 ez'okumakya. Amanya nze Omumbejja Luwedde Lilian era nga nkoze ne munnange Mukose Arnold Anthony. Tukozesa naye olunaku luno olwaleero enkya tulina omulangira Nakibinge tugenda kuba nga tutunulira ensonga za Buganda, agenda kuba atubulira ebintu ebyenjawulo biki byetugenda okusuubira na biki byetulina okukola era mumulindirire olunaku olw'enkya. Omukyala Elizabeth Mositwa yabadde mu byuma olunaku luno olwaleero, Teddy Tenjo Nabukeera yabadde ku kamera, Jeremiah Mukiibi ye director for olunaku luno olwaleero, Kato Tumusiime yabadde driver nga tutambuzaamu ku nguudo z'ekibuga Kampala wano na wali n'omugenyi waffe gwe tukyaziza omukulu Primus Bahiigi. Tusinkana olunaku olw'enkya, mubeere bulungi, mweraba.
The Alternative Digital. Real issues, real talk.
Abanyayuganda bagenzi banje omubwire obu obw'okulonda kalulu nitubashaba okukuuma obusinge omu maka n'omu bicweka byaitu n'obujunanizibwa bwaitu okumaraho obutabanguko omu maka. nitubijusya okwetanta ekirwe kya COVID-19 obwene mukuratira okwaburwa kwa Ministry y'ebyamagara. Obutumwa obu nubukwishibwaho Uganda Women Parliamentary Association UWOPA na UN Women n'obushagikirwa omu EU Spotlight Initiative.